My name is Samuel Taylor Coleridge. I was born in Devonshire, England on October 21st, 1772. I am not sure how many siblings I had, since some critics state that my parents had 10 children, others say 14. Since my father, John Coleridge, was a reverend, on my third birthday, instead of toys, he got me a Bible so I could learn how to read. When I was 6 years old, I fell in love with Arabian Nights. It used to give me nightmares, but then again, this is what helped me be creative in my own writing later on in life. When I was 9 years old, my father died and I was sent to Christ Hospital School as a charity student. The next year, I witnessed the fall of the Bastille on July 14, 1789. I am not sure if it was the fall of the Bastille or the death of my father. All I know is that I became manic depressed and I contemplated suicide. I'm glad I didn't do it, because in 1791, I was admitted into Jesus College at Cambridge University with full scholarships. By this time, I was already spending money like crazy and seeking romantic inspiration in local brothels. This is when I discovered the effects of opium. I was young and naive, and I was plagued by debt, so I enlisted the 15th Light Dragoons in 1793 under my new name, Silas Tompkin Cumberbatch. This new stage of my life only lasted 6 weeks, and then I was sent back to Cambridge in 1794, but I never received a degree. When I was 21 years old, I met Robert Southey, a poet at Oxford University. The both of us fantasized about being the rulers of our own government system in Pennsylvania called Pantisocracy. We talked about relocating to America, along with 12 other men who would join us in our agriculture commune in our utopia. Later that year, I published some poetry, mainly some sonnets dedicated to political radicals like William Godwin and Joseph Priestley. But we never moved to America. Instead, I married Southey's fiancée's sister, Sarah Fricker, in October 1795. That same year, I met William and Dorothy Wordsworth. We became almost immediate friends with William. Dorothy, well, she was more like the muse for the both of us and the link that kept us together. I started writing publicly against the government and the church and addressing issues of the time such as famine, poor paying jobs, and the alienation of the lower class. I began publishing The Watchman in 1796, a political newspaper in which I exhorted the masses to demand equality and denounce the government and the church's politics. I lectured at Bristol on subjects like politics, religion, and history. In 1798, William and I were strolling down by the seaside, gathering ideas for which poems would be included in our supposed collaboration. I noticed a fisherman who kept bending over, picking up what appeared to be worms. I could not stand that sight. How could the government ignore the lower classes of society? How can they enslave people? How can they alienate the lower class? This sight inspired me to write something like this.
The Rime of the Ancient Mariner!
My bad. I didn't write the Ancient Mariner for Iron Maiden, but for the common people instead. William and I, however, worked on lyrical ballads for almost a year. We published the book in September 1798, but we had to do it anonymously since there were many political battles going on at that time, mainly Industrial Revolution and Reformation of government and church politics. In lyrical ballads, most of my famous poems were published, like This Lime Tree Bower My Prison, Fierce in Solitude, The Nightingale, Christabel, and fragment of a masterpiece I never finished, Kubla Khan. William and I moved to Germany in September 1798. But upon our return to England, I also wrote many political articles on the book for Romantic Metaphysics. In 1801, we published the second edition to Lyrical Ballads, but only William's name appeared on the page, and he ignored most of my poems. This book honestly only deteriorated our friendship, and even though we tried to fix our differences, our friendship never went back to being what it was. And because of that, and the closeness that we had lost, In 1808, I moved to Malta and I worked as a public secretary, as a literary critic. I also wrote plays for a living. I became a journalist, a metaphysician, and a lecturer at the Royal Institution. Most of my lectures, although they were on Shakespeare, I also did condemn the acts of the government and the church in some lectures too. Between June and September of 1815, I wrote and published Biographia Literaria and dedicated it to John Morgan. I lived in Highgate, in the suburbs of London, the remaining of my life, along with Dr. James Gilman, who cared for me and helped me with my addiction to opium. Finally, I lost that battle to laudanum, the mixture of opium I used to drink with alcohol, and I died on July 25th, 1834.